All right, so today we're going to talk about why I was such a toxic leader. Um, so going back to right after I met my wife, I was, like I said, at that point when I met her, I knew, not when I met her, but when I started our relationship, I wanted to be a better person. And at that point, also, my adult life had always been Army, right? And I was surrounded by hard charging leaders who led with a lot of times it was led with fear. I had a couple that led with a little bit of like more reverence. I actually appreciated them for who they were. They didn't have to yell, they didn't have to curse, they didn't have to do anything except, hey, go do this, and it got done. Um, but then there were the other leaders who were just like mean, aggressive, just angry for no reason. Uh, and I think in a way because I don't know if in high school I wasn't treated badly. I wasn't bullied or anything like that. But I was kind of a little more to myself. I avoided conflict. I always felt like everyone else was better than me in school. So I think what I did is I had the chance once I got promoted to be like, I have power now, and it went straight to my dome. So it was right before September 11th, and I had re-enlisted. I was a specialist, and when September 11th happened, well, first of all, the reason I re-enlisted is because I was like, man, this is easy. I sweep the ground once in a while. I mow some grass. I do some paperwork, whatever it is. I just get things done. It's not that hard. So that's what I did. And I was like, done, dude. And I got to shoot rockets all the time. How cool was that? So I re-enlisted for 6 years. I was like, this is cake. And then that was in July of 2001. And then in September, we were attacked. And I was like, dear God, what have I done? Well, now I have to be even more tough on these guys. And we're going to talk about my a very detailed story on my response to September 11th and how a lot of what the way I treat soldiers now, I look back at that time and that time as far as like just the Army as a whole and soldiers. So we'll go into that very, very detailed later. But yeah, so I was specialist at the time, and we got called in. We had to pull gate guard. Our unit was the first ones to do it, so we had to like make up gates. Like there weren't even entry points at some of the places we had to go to, and I was at one of them. Like there were dudes just trying to go four wheeling and riding dirt bikes, and I had to turn them around. I was on the backside of post, but because I was promotable, I'd just gone to the board and I just earned my promotable status. They put me in charge of a shift. So when you earn your promotable status, you go to a promotion board, and then everyone in your chain of command and your NCO support channel, really not the chain of command so much, has to agree that you should go to the board. And I remember drawing my weapon to go to gate guard one day, and I had been promotable already, and my first sergeant asked me a question, and I was tired. We had it was like midnight to 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning shift, and he said something, and I was like, no, first sergeant, I didn't do that. Whatever it was, I don't remember what it was, but he had said to me, he's like, you know what, man, I don't even think you're ready to be a sergeant. You're just not mature enough yet. And I had very little respect for this guy anyway because he was the leader that led with an iron fist. And he took that iron fist out on every junior soldier, every NCO. It didn't matter. He was just a jerk to everybody. So I was like, I couldn't care less what you think. And at that point, my team leader had come down the stairs and he said, Sergeant so-and-so, I haven't talked to him, so I don't have permission to mention his name, but do you think Eck is ready to be a sergeant. He said, without a doubt, First Sergeant. And that was it. He said, okay. So I'll stay promotable for a little while. I finally got promoted to sergeant on January 1st, 2002. And as soon as I became an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, I got this hard charging, like I'm in charge now, nobody can tell me anything attitude. Even other NCOs, I made them call me sergeant. I'd be walking through parking lots, and soldiers, if they didn't address me, I would stop them, make them stand at parade rest, and address me by my rank. I was so power hungry, and I finally got like the lowest level of non-commissioned officer, except for corporal, and I was like, dude, I'm done. I am all powerful now. And it was different than my home life. A lot of my family and friends didn't see this. But at work, man, I was aggressive. And I remember it wasn't so bad in the very, very beginning. We were cutting grass one day. And the first sergeant put me in charge of the grass cutting detail. And I was down there, and one of the soldiers was doing something. I was like, hey, y'all need to get this done so we can go home today. And he came up to me and he's like, hey, man, don't be a sergeant on me. We're friends. And I didn't know how to react to that because we were friends. We were just specialists together a month prior. And so I didn't respond. I was like, that's weird, man. But I still made them all go to work. And I talked to First Sergeant later. He's like, you need to nip that in the bud. Like, you need to set yourself apart now. So that's what I did. And it got even worse. We would go on missions, and I took pride in making grown men cry. Like, I would yell at them and belittle them, just so they would know for very sure that I was in charge. If you have to tell someone you're in charge, if you have to be that aggressive to make sure someone knows that you're in charge, you're not in charge of anything, right? Especially emotionally. So that's what I did. I was super, super aggressive. No matter what needed to get done, I was like, I got this. And I was mean. I had to go to Korea in 2003, September 03. I went to Korea and I said, First Sergeant, I want a lot of responsibility. Like, put me in charge of everything. And he made me the barracks NCO. And in Korea, I'm drinking whiskey today, by the way. In Korea, everyone lives in the barracks. There's barely anybody that lives off post, unless I guess a lot of people had married locals or whatever. Or in my MOS, people didn't bring their families here. We were too close to the DMZ, and with our job, you couldn't bring families there anyway. But people would marry locals and get apartments off base. So everyone lived in the barracks, and we had barracks cleanup every day. There was a roster that had gone out. Like, I put out this roster that this floor needs to do this half of the barracks needs to do this part, and we just rotated through shifts. And we would have barracks inspections where we would come through with literal white gloves and run it over things that, the hot spots that we knew were going to be dirty no matter how hard you tried. And on a Saturday or Sunday. And if it was bad, that dude's cleaning for the whole day. They would have to empty the room of all the furniture, scrub that furniture, clean it up before they can move each piece back into the room for no reason. Like, it is literally because I had that kind of power, and I was definitely going to use it. So that's what we did. We were there were a handful of NCOs that did it, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's a combat arms mentality. But you know what? That's a developed mentality based off of your opinion of other leaders and how you saw it growing up. It doesn't have to be like that. And we're going to go into that a little bit too. But there was one point where I had gone and I went to the store and bought about 20 scrapers and a whole bunch of Ajax and bleach and whatever else I could find to strip the wax off the floor. Literally all the soldiers on their hands and knees stripping wax. And the first sergeant one day on Friday morning said, hey, Sergeant Eck, are the barracks clean? Or he said, are my barracks clean? I said, no, First Sergeant, they're not. He's like, all right, what do you want to do about it? I said, nobody's going out tonight, First Sergeant. We're cleaning the barracks. And I only did it because I was in charge. I didn't drink at that point. I stopped drinking. I told you that. When I met my wife, I stopped drinking. I still drank once in a while, but I remember I hated the taste of beer. So I didn't care about my Friday night. The most I did is went on Google and found songs I liked and watched TV, or I built a couple computers over there, stuff like that. So I took everyone's Friday night from them, and yeah, I had already, before he even said that, I went and bought the scrapers and everything. I was planning this. I can't even tell you why I did it, other than I was a complete jerk. So, Friday night comes by and everyone's lined up in the hallway at 5 p.m. exactly, and I handed out scrapers, I handed out bottles of whatever cleaner I had, and then people brought scrapers out of other places, whatever they could. Every single soldier was on the floor scrubbing wax off the floor by hand, and I loved it. I was walking up and down the hallway like I did this. This is my project. Why? So later on that night, one of my other sergeants comes up and he's like, hey, Sergeant Eck, this guy's not coming to clean. I said, so go get him. And he's like, I've tried 3 or 4 times. He's not listening. So I went down to his room and I started yelling at the kid. Get your ass up here. All this stuff. It was very, very much meaner. I'm trying so hard not to cuss in these podcasts a whole lot. But he comes up and starts scraping the floors. And when I walked away, he had, I guess, shoulder checked the sergeant. And the guy came and told me about it. So I brought him on the balcony. And I was yelling. In fact, people on the other side of our base the next day were like, I could hear you yelling at someone. I was on the fire escape screaming and hollering at this guy. I bumped into a couple times. I tried to get him to bump into me. I tried so hard to get this kid to fight me. I was swearing and cussing and talking about him and his family and everything, and his, being out of shape and terrible, all this stuff. I was trying so hard to get him to fight me that he actually did start crying, and there was some physical contact. It wasn't an all-out brawl. I did push him around, and it got split. It got broken up. But the next day was Saturday morning, and I was walking to the PX to get some stuff, and I was coming back, and I see the Sergeant Major. And the Sergeant Major had just recommended me for the Sergeant Audie Murphy board. And he's like, hey, come here, man. And I go over and he's like, what'd you do last night? I was like, we stripped the floor, Sergeant Major. We're going to buff him tonight and wax him. He's like, what happened last night? I was like, nothing. That's it. We just stripped the floors. And, we had one problem with a soldier who was, ignoring orders. But I got him in line. And then he said, his dad's a colonel in the States, right? And my heart started racing. And I was like, oh, crap. And he's like, you need to come talk to the battalion commander. So I had to go see the BC, the battalion commander, and I got read my 5th Article 15. This one was a little higher. They didn't take my rank, they didn't take my pay, but I got restricted to post. I got all this other punishment, extra duty, everything. Which over there on extra duty, you are responsible for making sure the junior enlisted, because I was a non-commissioned officer, make sure they're doing their work. So literally I just walked around and told them what to do. I was as lazy as I could about it, because I thought, I'm a leader, I don't have to do this anymore. But on top of that, I had to go get counseling. I had to go to anger management for a little while, and it was way down in Yongsan, Korea, which is quite a bus ride / train ride for us. So I had to go see the Division Artillery Sergeant Major instead. They had worked it out so where I could be there and go see him for anger management, which was really just mentorship. And instead of going to Yongsan every week, because it was on Thursday, and on Thursdays we had sergeant's time, and that was my time where strictly set aside for me to train my soldiers. And So I had to go see him on Thursday afternoons. Sergeant's time was from 7 in the morning until noon. And I got lunch and I was at his office by 1 p.m., 1300. So, over a couple weeks, I wasn't there very long. It was just while I was on extra duty. So, over that time, he had talked to me a few times. And the one thing that stuck with me, this is where I started to change my leadership style a little bit. And it really changed on my deployment in 2005. And we'll go over that, I think, the next podcast, actually. But he said, that guy, I can't mention his name. That guy, he's a PFC, right? I was like, yes, Sergeant Major. And he's like, it's 2003. So he joined the Army during a time of war. I was like, yes, Sergeant Major. He's like, none of us did that. He said, this kid knew our country was in combat right now, engaged, and still decided to join the Army. And not only join the Army, but join a combat arms MOS. And he's like, he didn't come here to be disrespectful. He's probably responding to leaders in his battery. And it didn't hit me very hard until like 2 years later. I still thought about it, and I was still like, oh, wow, that's the first time I heard it. You hear it all the time now in the Army. Like, everyone that's in the Army right now has enlisted or re-enlisted during a time of war. Yeah, definitely, right? So that was the first time I had ever heard it, and I was like, huh, it's true. And it got me thinking about would I have done it if we're engaged in combat? And I don't know. And honestly, I do know. And I'm going to talk about that probably next week. Probably our next podcast. I'll discuss that with you. And that's one of the more, I like that. I like telling that story. And you'll see why I have such a deep appreciation for soldiers. I genuinely love our military, men and women, because of what they're doing. A lot of people say thank you for your service, but I say thank you for your service all the time to them. I'm definitely going way off track now. We're supposed to be talking about what a bad leader I was. So then I go back to the States, and when I get to the States, they put me in, I was in the same exact battalion I had left to go to Korea. So this time I was in a different battery. And I was a staff sergeant by this point. I had gotten promoted while I was in Korea. I had gone to a lot of boards and got promoted while I was there. So I came back and they're like, hey, we're reorganizing our battery. You're going to be a section chief. It was for like 8 soldiers. We had we were supposed to deploy to do a truck driver mission, just go and move materials all over Iraq. It ended up changing to where we were doing convoy security. So we went from teams of like 8 to 12 all the way down to 3, including the whoever the leadership was. And I had the opportunity to hand select my soldiers that got to go with me. My platoon sergeant at the time, who ended up becoming he was my platoon sergeant, was now a Sergeant Major Bund. At that time it was Sergeant First Class Bund. This guy was the first leader I had. Let me back up. When I was in Korea, my second half of my tour, I had he is also a sergeant major right now. At that point, it was Sergeant First Class Jeffrey Price. Actually, he got promoted while we were there. Yeah, and I learned a lot from him about being a positive leader, letting things kind of roll off your back if it wasn't that big of a deal, and just to have fun. Like, have fun. The Army doesn't have to be serious all the time. So now we'll fast forward to my second influential leader as far as non-commissioned officers are concerned. There's only like 2 officers. I'm just kidding. Which was Sergeant First Class Bund. And I still talk to him regularly. And I remind him every chance I get that the leader I became was almost, I would say probably 80% molded off what I saw in him as a leader, and I wanted to be just like him because he wasn't super friendly. He was a very, very approachable NCO. He wasn't mean at all, like unless he had to be. He only was mean when he had to be. He wasn't mean for no reason. He got angry and let you know. Um, but the way he approached everything was super laid back, super relaxed. Like nothing's an emergency. It doesn't matter. Like when it was an emergency, the dude handled it really well. Always, always very calm. And I took that approach. Obviously, I didn't adopt it like immediately. Like, I'm calm about everything now. It took a lot of time and reflection and dealing with soldiers and learning how to assess problems and situations and react from there. But he ended up being my platoon sergeant, and he gave me the opportunity to pick my soldiers. All of us, there were two other staff sergeants, me and Guy Smith. And then Sergeant First Class Bunn and First Lieutenant at the time was actually may have been Second Lieutenant Bean. He got First Lieutenant while we were there, but I don't have permission to talk about him. I'm gonna message you, sir, if you're on here. But they gave us the opportunity to pick our teams, and I picked Derek Baling and one other guy who I'm not able to contact. I haven't talked to him in years, but these guys were superstars. I mean, my driver was the other guy. He was a EMT, super fired up. I wanted some fired up soldiers because I was always really wired and happy and excited to be around. Nobody was excited to be around me, but I was excited to be around other people and to be just in the Army. And I picked Derek Baling because he was the opposite of me. Super relaxed, super quiet. I wouldn't say relaxed. The dude seemed like he was ready to explode at all times, and I love that. Like a lot of pent up anger, and which made for awesome conversations. But I picked those guys because they were both, even though they had completely different personalities, fired up about working, and that's what I liked. I like working a lot. When I'm working, I like working hard until I can't move anymore. So there's so many times I just don't eat because I'm working. And my wife yells at me about it all the time. So that's what I wanted. I wanted guys like me as far as work ethic is concerned. And while we were deployed, Derek, my gunner, had another huge impact on me. And that's another story that's going to go on. It's going to be a little bit because I'm going to call Derek and we're going to get him involved. But yeah. That was the leader I was, and I'm ending it on more of a transition because after I came back from Iraq, I was a completely different NCO. Again, if y'all have questions, anything, feel free to message me on Facebook. You can comment on my YouTube videos, especially this one. Like and subscribe. I know that seems dorky to say, and I'm not trying to get money out of this. But the more views I get, the more people will click on this video, and it's nice to see other people get involved that might need the advice, that might want to just hear it, vent, whatever it is. And it's cool to get the responses. It genuinely is cool to read your comments and your responses. So yeah, thanks again for listening. Next week we're gonna talk with Derek, I think. Matter of fact, yes, we're gonna talk with Derek. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. See you next time.